Businesses may hold in their digital wallets. And they noted that it was an effective holding limits were an effective tool, and it would be included in the design of a digital euro. So they signaled to us subtly, each of these central banks, that there will be control.
Yeah, Eva, correct me if I'm wrong, but I understood it as that they will literally take the money from you if you're not using it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So and they can set it to expire within 30 days.
That's so weird.
And if you don't convert the goods, it will evaporate.
So in other words, we're going back to communism. Like everybody is equal. It's communism / socialism at this point. Like everybody's equal. Everybody, you can't be rich, you can't be wealthy because you can't have money in your account.
CBDC on the one hand is control of your money. Tokenization of assets is control of everything else.
Wow.
And we know that at some point, we're going to lose in the great controversy, as we read it in Revelation 13. Those who are loyal to God and obey his laws and worship God aren't going to be able to buy or sell. You know, we're going to, we can expect, I think, the way we wrap our head around this mentally is to see the changes that are going on, see the architecture that they're building to enforce Satan's no buy, no sell policy, but read the Bible and really improve our relationship with God and with Christ and have that daily devotional time, because God doesn't want us to be afraid of any of these things. We should count it a blessing to have to lose our money and all of our things for Jesus.
So Revelation 13, Mark of the Beast, that also includes, of course, no buying and selling. And I think that we are starting to see this growth towards this idea of no buying and selling. It's coming closer and closer. Mark of the Beast is coming closer and closer. And so we need to talk about this. What's actually happening so we can be prepared. CBDC, central bank digital currency. We're going to talk about it with Eva and Heidi Tompkins. You guys run the CBDC Watch, and you guys are also from the Wisdom Pearl. Maybe you can talk about the Wisdom Pearl a little bit at the end, but first, CBDC. Why does this matter? Why is this connected to the Mark of the Beast? How are we gearing towards this?
So I realized during
God bless you, everybody. Welcome to the broadcast on tonight. I'm coming on rather late, but nevertheless, we are here. Amen. I almost did not come on, but I am wanting to get on, and that way, even those of you that are not on, you can always watch the replay. Amen. So blessings, blessings, blessings to you all. And blessings to those of you that are going to come on at a later time, and those of you that are going to watch this as a replay viewer. Okay, so God bless you. I hope that everything is all well with you, and that you are I find you in good health and that all is well with you spiritually, that you are strengthened in your walk with God and all of that other stuff. So, on tonight, we're going to watch a few videos, talk here and there about some of the things that are advancing in the coming of the Lord, and just trying to be a blessing, prophetic end time ministry to keep you focused and also strengthened in your walk with God. So, Heavenly Father, I come before you right now. We thank you and lift up the name of Jesus over this broadcast. I ask that you will help us to draw the people here that needs to hear this word, whether it's here on tonight or whether it's on the replay viewer. We ask that you would keep us encouraged, knowledgeable, and strengthened for the things that is to come in this earth. Lord, we give you praise, glory, and all of the honor. Bless us, your people, to keep on advancing the kingdom and keep on drawing closer to you like never before and being a blessing to one another. We pray this on tonight in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen and amen. So, guys, we're going to go into this very first video. And this video is going to talk about a lot of the things concerning this system that is already in place, and a lot of people are not aware of it. Of course, we know we all are, but we're going to go ahead and take a listen to this information. And if there's anything that I need to interject or share, I will be stopping the video, and especially on YouTube, because they require us to do that. Okay?
In the pandemic, that I work in the financial markets. I'm a lawyer. I practiced law for 20 years in New York before retiring to practice in the financial markets. And because of my work in the financial markets, I watch the central banks very closely. I have to see what they're doing, how they're setting interest rates, what they're doing, because what they do affects the markets. So during the pandemic, I started to see this push towards central bank digital currency. And I looked into this, and for me, God showed me that this is really the perfect architecture for Satan's no buy, no sell policy. It's fully programmable. Central bank digital currency, for those who don't know what it is, it's fully programmable, fully traceable digital currency that is issued by a government or its central bank. And because it's issued by one authority and it's fully programmable, fully traceable, fully surveillable, they can see all of your transactions in real time, monitor them all in real time. They can track them in real time. They can tax you instantly. They could institute negative interest rates, which would be a deduction from your balance, which would be in your digital wallet. So they really need a few things to have this type of system. They need a high quality digital ID, which they're pushing the real ID right now as well.
Yeah.
And need a digital public infrastructure, which is central bank digital currency or a similar stable coin, some sort of digital currency. And then they need widespread sharing of information. So the reason why it's a threat to liberty is because with central bank digital currency, you really need the government or the central bank's agreement that you should spend that amount of money in that transaction at that location for that particular item. They could really program your CBDC so that it can't work to buy certain foods and goods that they might not want you to buy, so that it can't work in certain locations, so that it can't work for a specific amount. They could program it however they want to elicit the behavior that they want for people. So that's fully controllable by the central bank that issues it.
So if it's controllable and traceable, you said, and programmable, is this something that they're creating? Like, it's not crypto or NFTs or anything like that, right? Is it like original, like they are making it?
Correct.
Okay.
So it's digital currency that's issued from a central bank as a liability on its balance sheet. So when the central bank issues money, it's a liability on its balance sheet. No different when it's digital, it's still a liability on their balance sheet. So when the central bank issues you the money, they control everything about it. It's fully programmable. They can control how or when it is spent, what it can be spent for, how much you can have. They can set an expiration date on it, which they really like. They could put a 30-day or less expiration date on the currency, forcing you to convert it to goods. They actually really like that feature because it allows the central bank to control the money supply that much more efficiently. So the reason why this is a threat to liberty is because if the government were to mandate certain that certain medical practices have to be taken, or medical procedures certainly need to be taken, they can turn off your money if you don't comply. They could turn off your money if they don't like what you post on social media. They could turn off your money if they don't like your religious practices. They could turn off your money for any particular reason. Let's go back to the lockdowns. If they wanted to keep you in your house or enforce 5-minute cities or 15-minute cities, it's easy to do with central bank digital currency. Your money won't work outside of that radius.
And it's completely paperless, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, completely paperless.
wow. That's one way to control.
What's really interesting is, during the pandemic, if we just reflect back a 2 years, right? I mean, of course, we've all used our debit cards, our credit cards, we've all bought online, but notice that during the pandemic, everything was locked down, right? So you couldn't go. There was a period of time here in New York, you couldn't go to the store, and you certainly couldn't go into a store if you weren't wearing a mask, and so many people were forced to shop online. And so, with people shopping online, we saw during that time a pullback from cash. And we saw that many merchants were saying, okay, well, we no longer take cash. They didn't want cash anymore. They wanted all these digital transactions, which made things convenient, when we were under that pressure situation or under that pandemic situation. But and so people are much more used to it now. And so, you can almost look at that as like a setup for, the next phase or the next stage, the CBDC. People are, because I've talked to people about it. I've actually, when we were setting up the Listen Pro, for example, we went to the bank and, and I was interviewing banks and I was looking at banks who, participate in the Fed now, right? And so we avoided those. I went to other banks that weren't participating in Fed now, and I was educating their employees about CBDC because they knew nothing about it. And I wanted to bank with a local bank who was not going to be, swayed or so easily swayed into Fed Now, which was like one of the first steps leading up to the whole CBDC, idea. And, they just had no idea, but they recognized that, merchants were not wanting people to use cash and wanting to use, more of your debit card and credit card and all of that. And they just had no clue about this CBDC thing. And one of the tellers was saying, well, what's the difference? We already use our debit card, our credit card. We purchase everything during the pandemic online. And that's great that you have that freedom to do it, but how are you going to feel when you don't have the freedom and when the government's telling you where you can use that debit card or that credit card or when you can use it, or maybe they don't like your social credit score. They don't like what you're posting on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or any social media, and they just turn off your money just like that. And they were like, oh, that'll never happen. That'll never happen. But they were just clueless. It was really funny, actually.
Yeah, I think for sure this has been a long time coming. I'm in my mid 40s and I don't think I've used cash in 20 years. As soon as I could get a debit card and later a credit card, that's what I use. And people understand that the more data is breached online, the more there are security concerns. It used to be 2FA. Well, a lot of that can be intercepted, depending on how you're using it. So if you're having it come to your phone, because your SIM card can be hijacked. Now, if you're using a third-party authentication manager like 1Password or LastPass or something like that, then those codes can't be intercepted. But now it's all a push towards passkeys. You need your device for biometrics because it's much safer than just having your data, all available online. But you think of how we've just been moving steadily towards that for a long time. This is like not necessarily a new idea, but think about it. Like in this country, there are EBT, right? EBT is a debit form of payment that is issued by a government entity to pay for food items for people who are at a certain poverty level. You can't use that for just anything at the store. It's only an approved list of goods that can be purchased with that card.
So in a way, it's already controlled.
So in a way, there are already measures in place to control the purchase of various goods and services. Now, those,
you can see how people are already kind of like conditioned for this.
and they're not, and that's not to say that it's always bad in every kind of situation. If you're giving a benefit to somebody who's in a poverty level situation, you don't want them taking that debit card and going buying lottery tickets. You don't want them to go and buy, extravagant things or things where you would find it wasteful. Like, for example, cigarettes and alcohol, especially if they were able to give that debit card to a minor and the minor goes to the store for their parent. Let's say they're 17, they go shopping. You don't want them to just be able to buy anything. They need to be able to come home with the groceries. So there are many forms that we actually do this and we find it acceptable. But the key piece is always the freedom. Like, can I do what I want to with my money? Is it really my money?
So I'm thinking, Eva, the reason why I got you two on here is because I was witnessing some developments in the CBDC world, right? And I think we already know China has it. We know that the United States is working towards it. Many countries are working towards it. And it's interesting the United States is working towards it because we understand from Bible prophecy that this is where the mark of the beast is going to happen first. Link in the description if you want to know why for a in-depth Bible study on the mark of the beast. But we know those things. But I was witnessing about Europe, that Europe is very close to actually establishing a CBDC. So can you guys give us a little bit of an update of where things are at right now?
Well, sure, absolutely. So there's a couple of websites that you can check to track how CDC is developing around the world. Right now, there are most countries are pursuing a CBDC in some stage, in some form. Some are in earlier stages of research and development. Some are in later stages of research and development. But there's two websites that are very good at tracking this. One is the Atlantic Council. The Atlantic Council has a CBDC tracker. If you go to the atlanticcouncil.org, you can find their CBDC tracker. The other is called cbdctracker.org. So those are two different websites, and both have similar maps as to what countries are pursuing it and what stages they're pursuing it. The countries that are pursuing a CBDC represent about 98% of global GDP.
Wow.
So this is truly a worldwide global thing. And it's all being pushed by the Bank of International Settlements, which is the central bank above all the other central banks. They have sovereignty of unity. They are their own country. They can't be controlled by any government or country or global group. They're their own entity. And they oversee all of the other central banks. And they've been pushing for this for some time. And in fact, there was a statement that was made by the general manager for the Bank of International Settlements. His name is Augustin Carstens. And back in October 2020, so this is 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, he was talking about central bank digital currency. And he said, we tend to establish the equivalence with cash. There is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who is using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. The key difference with CBDC is the central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability, and will have the technology to enforce that. Wow. So that's from the Bank of International Settlements general manager back in October 2020. They've been pushing us and hurting us towards this central bank digital currency and putting pressure on countries around the world to institute this type of system because the central bankers want to have this control.
I think it's a situation where we see with many things is there are two good things that have opposite outcomes being pitted against each other. So is everything that comes with CBDC bad? No, there's a lot of things that we probably would welcome and appreciate. I mean, if you're really wanting to crack down on things like drug trade, well, if you can't purchase anything because there's no cash or the cash is being taken into all the banks, you know, because it's not in circulation anymore, how are you going to buy stuff like that? Right? So all of a sudden now it's trackable. Now, I guess my question for you as I sit here and think about this is there are dozens of cryptos, most of which are probably decentralized, and there isn't a tracking system in place, et cetera, et cetera. For example, like Bitcoin. One of the reasons I know some people wanted to put Bitcoin in place as essentially the currency of the United States is because it still maintains some of that freedom aspect if you're just using Bitcoin. So how does Bitcoin come into play? Because it's skyrocketing as people see this is the next ticket. This is what we need to invest in. It's worth a lot because we say it is. But how does that pit against the other? Because there's still a lot of Bitcoin out there. I mean, I don't think it's been fully generated. There's still some that can either be generated or halved. And people still have that as an asset. So how do you control that?
Well, they are working to control that, and I'll explain how. So Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, they're essentially, you can think of them as freedom currencies in that no one's forcing you to buy them. You can buy them unless you have a government that says we're prohibiting the purchase of Bitcoin. And some countries did do that for a little while. They tried to prohibit Bitcoin. You can buy Bitcoin. You can have Bitcoin. However, Bitcoin has been hijacked in a certain sense. The SEC has ruled that Bitcoin is commodity while all other cryptos are securities. Now, why did they do that? There's not too much of a difference. It's a cryptocurrency like any other cryptocurrency, but they ruled that it was a commodity. Since then, large hedge funds like BlackRock have created derivative products around Bitcoin. There'll be Bitcoin ETFs, there's Bitcoin futures, there's options. And in this way, they're going to, if they don't already have the control, the ability to control the price of Bitcoin, they will be able to control the price of Bitcoin because it's the same thing with silver and gold. Silver and gold should have a much higher value than they actually have, but they're being controlled through the paper products around them, this derivative products around that, PTS, futures, and all that, options, all that sort of thing. So there's gold enthusiasts who say that gold and silver should be much higher in value. The same thing I think I see them doing to Bitcoin, trying to co-opt Bitcoin with these derivatives like the futures, ETFs, options, and that sort of thing to keep the price down or to control the price in any way they want to.
Yeah. The other thing.
Feels one of the largest Bitcoin holders.
Yes.
Actually, the Justice Department is one of the biggest Bitcoin holders.
Yeah.
So many wallets.
Yeah. That's another thing that I was wondering about too, is if governments or even large corporations that that have loose ties to governments kind of snatch up the majority of it, essentially it is controlled because it's not yours.
Well, and that's also interesting that the Justice Department specifically owns so much of it, knowing that in Revelation 13, those who will not take the mark of the beast are those who are going to be persecuted. How can you persecute somebody or put him to death unless it's enforced by law and the government plays a role?
Yeah, I want to say that the FBI was a large holder of Bitcoin like 10, 15 years ago. Like they invested early. So I was like, why is the FBI investing into Bitcoin? Like writing was on the wall.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Well, I'm also thinking of, speaking of the mark of the beast and what that's all about. We know that if you read it carefully, it's about worship, right? It's in the text. And so I'm wondering, because some people might hear this and be like, yeah, but this is all like about finances and about money. And sure, the Revelation study says no buy or sell, but how do you connect that to the idea of worship of, well, there's some religious entity involved? It seems far removed for some people, religious entity or religious worship and finances. How do you connect those two?
Well, once they control your finances, they really control you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the idea. And what we've seen in this digital system is sort of, they've been corralling us into this system of control. It's really, if you listen to Catherine Austin Fitz, she's a brilliant investment banker. She calls it a control grid. This digital system is really a control grid. If you can control people's money, you can control their behavior.
Wow.
If you can control their assets, you can control their behavior. So you may not see a connection with religion now, but once they can control your money and your assets, they could really control any part of your behavior. And we know prophetically that will lead to worship and the line controlling worship.
And like
It's not during the pandemic too. When you look at the places that were prohibited, the places that were forced to close, churches were on that list, and they should not have been. Churches should have been one of the last places, that should have closed. They should have caved. But so you and me will say, oh, this has nothing to do with religion. It's just finance, et cetera, et cetera. Well, let's just look back a couple of years. You could go to the liquor store, you could go to a strip club or anything like that. You could do anything that you wanted to do, but churches were shut down. And the churches that didn't shut down, that stayed open, were heavily, heavily persecuted. Why is that?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Anyone who thinks that this is not tied to religion, I would beg them to ask that question. Why is that? Ad break.
And he
Okay, guys, on this end, there is something that is going on. I think there's a program that is running on my computer. I hear it, I just don't see it. And so I believe that is what is interfering with the actual broadcast. But we're going to stop right there. And I wanted to share another video with you all on today. So we're going to watch another video that is, that right there was just plain and simple. We all understand it. And we know that this is what is coming. And you can watch more of that on your own if you would. But we're going to go into our next video. And this is going to be more about the Israel and what is going on in these prophetic end times. Well, there's another video I have on Israel as well. So let's take a listen to this.
Than ever before. Deception never comes and announces it's here. It always comes dressed as an angel of light. He invited her into a portal. There's the Luciferians who are pulling the strings at the highest levels. It's easier to fool people than to convince them they've been fooled. Novus Ordo Seclorum, New World Order. This technology is available to a lot of powerful people.
Dr. Hickson, when I've looked at your books, and listened to your research, this is the comment I told my son yesterday morning. I said, he finds the lies that are hidden in plain sight. Now, I have already looked through your book, but then yesterday I also like looked at the back cover and then it said those same words. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I told my son, it actually says that. And that's what you find. You find the lies that are hidden in plain sight. And so many people are blind these days, Christians and non-Christians. And you're going to be uncovering some of those lies that I have to say are extremely alarming. Now, before you do, I just want to just ask, but I'm not going. But don't answer yet. Do you think Bible prophecy has slowed down because since Trump is president and Elon Musk is doing his thing and JFK Jr.? I mean, a lot of people think that, and I understand. Okay, so Trump has brought hostages home. He secured the borders, deported thousands of criminal illegal aliens. He brought over 5 million in investments to America. DEI is over in the military. Protecting women's sports. Elon, people were praising him for free speech, finding millions of dollars that are wasted, Social Security that they found going to dead people. And people are even praising the Neuralink, saying it's a blessing for humanity. Just imagine a world when someone is born blind, then they can see for the first time. I mean, some people just think Bible prophecy is not even relevant now because, we're living in utopia. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't agree at all, as I'm sure you could have guessed. In fact, I think these are more dangerous times than ever before, Janie. Notwithstanding some of the good things that are happening, there are always good things happening at any given time. The fact of the matter is the Christian church today in America is absolutely asleep at the wheel. I actually addressed that in my latest book, which maybe we can sometime in the future we can get together and talk about that either on our show or yours, but it's called The Great Last Days Apostasy, How the American Church is Falling Away. That came out in February. But there's no question that the American church, conservative Christians, have always been good at recognizing the devil in horns and a pitchfork and a tail. But what we don't recognize is true deception. Deception never comes and announces it's here. It always comes dressed as an angel of light. And we know Satan's MO is deception, as you alluded to a moment ago from the back of the first book in this series. Satan's a liar from the beginning. Jesus said in John 8:44, he's a liar. So everything he does is a lie. And I think, unfortunately, the vast majority of people in the church today have really been blinded, and they are embracing something that actually is for our own harm. It's not helping us, it's hurting us. You mentioned Neuralink. Yeah, there's no question that medical technology and the advancement of AI is helping a number of things in the medical field and accomplishing things that we've never been able to do before. X-ray technology, for example, has benefited from it, but it doesn't change the fact that ultimately Satan is trying to replicate humanity, get inside the minds of mankind so that he can feign omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence.
Well, talking about Neuralink, I found this very alarming. And I also want to bring up, you're going to bring up something very alarming with the global financial system. But okay, back to Elon. First of all, I have people now and they're just going, hey, do you know what GPT said? Or I'm probably saying it wrong. What Grok said? I can find out all my information and it will tell me the truth. Well, this I found very alarming. And this was on Elon Musk's X. I always want to say Twitter. And it says Grok is now being used in conjunction with Neuralink. And Neuralink patients can have Grok listen to the conversation and then generate options for them to quickly click so they can have a conversation at normal speed. And so basically, these people have Neuralink, but Grok is thinking for them. I found that extremely alarming.
Oh, of course. And we should be alarmed by that. Look, Elon Musk, I'm almost to the point where I really have no sympathy for those who continue to support him. I've spoken about him recently at a message that I did.
Notice he said that the church is asleep, y'all. And that is the reason why we do these type of broadcasts, because we are the church. We are part of the church. And if the church is asleep, then who's going to wake them up? And I believe that that is our assignment. If we are prophetic end time ministries, we are to do our part, and even you as well, sharing the videos, letting other people know what we know. Because again, the church are asleep, y'all. This is crazy because all of these things that is transpiring around us and is happening at a lightning speed, and people are asleep. I agree with him 100%. I don't know if you heard that comment, but people, or he said the church is asleep on these issues. I was sharing that with somebody earlier this week, and I began to tell them that we are not only a ministry that, feed the spirit and the soul and encourage you in your walk with God, but we talk about the things that this is the most important thing right here, because we are actually thinking, people are thinking that the world is just advancing in technology when actually the church should know that the world is advancing, Brother James, in technology towards the beast system. And you got to be able to recognize it and expose it and not go in that direction, because people are going in that direction quickly without even opposing it.
In Orlando. I've got all the documentation to back it up. I touch on it briefly in the third book in this series that we're talking about. It's called Spirit of the False Prophet, Rise of the Global Technocracy. But there's no question that he's a Satan worshiper. I mean, his mom is a witch. His sister makes movies about witches. He wears a Baphomet. He's talked about wanting to replace God, wanting to create a new God. He's a transhumanist and a leading transhumanist at that. The guy is absolutely no friend of Christians. And for Christians to just jump on board the Musk, train without any discernment whatsoever is stunning to me, because it's not that hard to find this stuff out. When he was a young boy, his nanny has come out and said that he invited her into a portal. I mean, the guy is demonically influenced at worst, and possibly even at a minimum, and possibly even demonically possessed. So, yeah, I get that he's cutting waste. Whoop-de-doo, we got $38 trillion in debt, and so we're going to cut a few, pennies here or there. That's not going to amount to much in the long run at all. So Christians, I think, need to really be careful about lining up behind Elon Musk or Peter Thiel or Sam Altman or Curtis Yarvin or Larry Ellison, any of these other technocrats that guys like Patrick Wood have been warning about for a long time.
Well, explain, but now that you're naming those other people, what some of the things that they've done that have been alarming. And then since President Trump has become president, some of the stuff that they've said.
Yeah, well, the very first day after his inauguration, Larry Ellison stood in the Oval Office and announced, along with Trump and along with Sam Altman, Stargate, which is a massive AI project to provide the power necessary, the energy necessary to run all of these massive server farms. The problem with AI isn't the technology. We've crossed that Rubicon. They know what they're doing. They've kind of let the cat out of the bag on the capabilities of AI, and they are horrific in the long run. But the problem is energy hasn't kept up with it. So they need more energy. In places like DFW, for example, Dallas-Fort Worth, I think it was something like 1/3 of the water consumption in the whole Metroplex area was used for AI factories, because they have to try to keep these machines cool. So it's just they've opened these massive plants. The one they announced in January with Larry Ellison and Donald Trump and Sam Altman and the other guy, Mashioki, I think is his name, from Japan, the four of them in a press conference in the Oval Office, was opened in Abilene, Texas. They plan to open many, many more. The U.S. Is claiming that we've got to lead the world in AI, otherwise China will. Well, look, there's no China versus US versus Russia. There's the Luciferians who are pulling the strings at the highest levels to try to usher in a one world political, economic, and religious system. That's what the Bible teaches. So we cannot allow ourselves to fall into this trap of an us versus them at the lower level and act like, oh, it's okay for us to fund and roll out all of this AI stuff, which is exactly what the Antichrist is going to use to oversee the beast system.
Okay, well, speaking of needing, I didn't know that about what you were saying with the water and to cool it, the system. Do you think, okay, here, do you think Trump threatening Greenland, that because I've heard people speculating that they want Greenland because they can put a lot of that technology there and it can cool it. I mean, is that true? And can you explain this whole thing? I mean, Trump threatening Greenland with military takeover. What is all of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really bizarre. And honestly, Trump is almost beside the point these days. I mean, obviously, most people that follow our ministry, they know my views on Trump. I've never been a Trump fan going back to 2015. I've never have been. I understand he's not, Kamala Harris, and he's not Joe Biden, and he's not Obama. I get that, but let's look at who he really is. But at this point, the technocrats that have flooded into the Washington, D.C. Beltway almost make Trump irrelevant. I don't know if he's the cart or the horse, or he's just along for the ride. I don't really know. I could speculate, but that would just make people mad. So let's assume the best. Let's assume that he's not in on it. He just wants what's best for America. He's trying to do some good. It doesn't matter, Janie, because what's happening right under his nose is, and very, very rapidly, by the way, is setting the stage for the beast system.
Okay, so you also talk about, and I didn't really.
So at the least, you can say that he said that, right? At the least, can you expect some of the ministers and the preachers and the prophets that is online, at the least, can you expect them to say that he is actually what he just said? I mean, you got people, and I'm not going to name names. I'm just going to let you apply the information to the people that is online, that is prophets or people that is ministers that is supporting Trump all the way, especially with the MAGA church. For the least, can you actually say they should at least be saying, well, even though we love Trump or we supported Trump, can we see it bringing in the beast system? Because if you are a man or woman of God, prophet, or even a leader in the MAGA church, shouldn't your goal be not for Trump to be in the office in the event of him rolling out the beast system? I mean, to me, as a man or woman of God, you should be more concerned about telling the people of God something like the beast system one day is going to come. Oh, and by the way, I'm sorry, we was talking about Trump being the man, but it looks like the beast system is being rolled out through him, by him, and under his administration. If this man can say that, and he's a minister of the gospel and an author of Christian publishing, thank God for people like that. And thank God for people like myself and other small YouTubers that is telling you the information. Because you got people like Joseph Z and Amanda Grace and all of the other ones that is still Trump. And this man just told you that they are rolling out the beast system under Trump's administration, whether he can see it or not. So at the end of the day, somebody in a MAGA church or a prophet should be saying, yes, the beast system is knocking at your door. I'm talking about Amanda Grace, Joseph Z, and all of those other prophetic people that is everything is Trump. And I'm not against them, but I'm saying, shouldn't you be saying we was for Trump and we were deceived? Now we see what the Bible is saying, because Joseph Z, they know what the Bible is talking about. Amanda Grace, they know what the Bible is talking about. But with a large platform like that, Shouldn't you be exposing what is actually happening? Because all of them people following your ministry don't even have a clue about the B system. All they understand is you told them to vote for Trump and he gonna make America great again. Well, what's gonna happen when he's not making America great? He's actually making America make everything go closer and quicker into the B system. I mean, should you be able to determine that and tell that to your people? If you look at all the thousands and thousands of people supported Joseph Z to get his studio. You know, that's because it's the MAGA church. That's the people that just read for Trump. But at the end of the day, those people were committed to you because you was for Trump. And if you start telling them that Trump is taking them into the B system, then they no longer going to support you. And whatever you build, you have to continue to get. You see, that's why I was telling y'all earlier last week. Whenever people think that they could come in your ministry and manipulate you through what they given, if you allow them to do that, or if you build your ministry based on saying certain things, and if people don't like you, don't say certain things, you're going to have to keep doing that. Because think about this. If you build a state-of-the-art studio with those kind of people, and then you built that ministry because those kind of people was wealthy people, but they crazy about Trump. And yet at the end of the day, you start telling them Trump is rolling out the B system. Now your money is drained because you built it based on the popular people that want to hear certain things. You should be more indebted to the gospel and getting people. You think I could care less about trying to promote a man when a B system is here? You steady got the people looking at a man, and the B system is here. And it's possible that most likely all of those people that is looking at you saying he's the man, most likely all of them people is going to lose their soul. Because if I could get you to believe Trump is the man, and if I could get Trump to roll out the B system, and you're still thinking he's the man, well, then a B system is going to be full-fledged, rolled out underneath the man that you say you absolutely love. Now, I don't hate nobody. I didn't even hate Biden. I didn't even hate Obama. I hated who they worked for and what they was doing. But at the end of the day, if these people have sworn their allegiance to the devil and they're just doing their job, and you as a man or ministry is supporting them, and you telling your little sheep to look upon them, and they bringing you directly into the beast system, you just done gave God's sheep to the beast. Because Jesus said, if you love me, feed my sheep. And if you are feeding his sheep, you would tell the sheep what time it is. Feeding your sheep, God's sheep, it has something to do with saving them from the lake of fire. So putting them onto someone that is going directly into the beast system and not telling them to pump the brakes, even if I said that, even if I said it, y'all, I would repent, and I would then tell the people Trump is bringing the people into the beast system. I would repent. I'm going to go back to that part so you can hear that part again.
Washington, D.C. Beltway almost make Trump irrelevant. I don't know if he's, the cart or the horse, or he's just along for the ride. I don't really know. I could speculate, but that would just make people mad. So let's assume the best. Let's assume that he's not in on it. He just wants what's best for America. He's trying to do some good. It doesn't matter, Janie, because what's happening right under his nose is, and very, very rapidly, by the way, is setting the stage for the beast system.
Okay, so you also talk about, and I didn't really know much about her, the CDC director. Can you explain who she really is and why this is alarming?
Oh, yeah. So she's a longtime big pharma person. I don't remember the exact details because I don't have them in front of me, but she was at the very least involved with, funding and, political action committees, but in deep with big pharma. As someone told me recently, people go to DC poor and they come away rich. That's the whole point of going there. They go there, they get connected with their Rolodex, they start connecting with all of these big, bureaucrats and companies and all the things that surround the government buildings. And next thing you know, they're in positions of huge power. So she has shown no signs whatsoever of wanting to expose Big Pharma the way I did in Chapter 9 of Spirit of the Antichrist, Volume 1. She's not a friend of independence and freedom. But so are many of his appointments. I mean, let's face it. He's not either. He's very easily swayed and not discerning, or perhaps he's intentionally bringing all of these people from the swamp right into his cabinet. But these are people that are very questionable in my mind. Maybe not all of them. I mean, obviously, I'm sure there's some good, God-fearing believers, brothers and sisters in Christ, who are patriotic and truly want to do what's best for the American Republic. But by and large, the people that are still running things in DC are not a part of the good guys.
Right, because things are still moving along. AI is still speeding along, and that's all definitely part of Bible prophecy. So nothing is really slowed down. And back to her, I heard you also say on one of your podcasts that she's involved in many transhumanist groups.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, just like Musk. I mean, Musk's grandfather from Canada was the leading one, was in the beginning of the technocratic movement, and was part. And by the way, technocrats and transhumanists are twins, as Patrick Wood has talked about. So the twin evils of technocracy and transhumanism. But Musk's grandfather goes way back to the 20s and 30s, and the genesis of the technocratic movement. If you trace these folks' background, such as the CDC director, that's what you'll find. We mentioned Larry Ellison a second ago, who was on day one of Trump's administration, was standing behind the presidential podium in the Oval Office. This is the same guy who last September said, quote, "Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that is going on." Larry Ellison, as you may know, is the founder of or CEO of Oracle, leader of Oracle, big technocrat, big tech. And that's what these guys want. And so I don't understand why Trump is allowing the technocracy to be rolled out right before our very eyes. But I can promise you, if President Harris had announced on day one of her administration that we're going to go full speed ahead rolling out AI technology, conservative Bible prophecy Christians would have gone berserk. But instead, they're all just sort of if they're not overtly cheering, they're just sort of fading into the background. And, well, it's not Harris. It's not Harris. It's not Harris. Yeah, it's not Harris. It's kind of like, strychnine versus arsenic. I'm not sure there's much difference at the end of the day.
Yeah, now I know that people will still argue that things are not as bad as they could have been under Harris. But anyway, the thing is with AI, I think this is the thing that people would say, well, he has to, because or else, China's going to beat him. And and you were talking about that. Now, I want to go to something else that I've heard you say, and I had no idea about this with, and this goes along with, the beast system, the end times, and a global financial system, but connected to Elon Musk. Explain that.
Yeah. So again, that Satan ultimately wants full control. Now, Psalm 2 makes it clear that his earthly co-conspirators are trying to break off the cords and bindings of God's control. Right now, God is sovereign. He has absolute control. They want it. Satan wanted it in heaven. He didn't. His coup attempt failed, so he set his sights on earth. His earthly accomplices, his co-conspirators on earth, the rulers, the kings, the leaders, the globalists, they want control. The only way they're going to be able to do that is through technology. So they're not going to ever have the mind of God. They want to create the mind of God, but of course, there's only one God. He is the Almighty God, all-powerful God. So Satan is using technology to kind of usher in that type of thing. That's what, think about all the things Musk is involved in. Neuralink, Starlink, It's all about linking the world together. We live in Colorado where people love to go hiking, and you can get up to a certain elevation in a remote part of the Rocky Mountains, and you don't have a cell signal. Well, with what Elon Musk is creating, you're going to have a cell signal. Now Starlink is hardwired into all of the Apple and Android phones. Wherever you are in the most remote part of the earth, you can use your cell phone because it's connected to the satellite. Now, is that a good thing? I mean, maybe if you fall and break your leg and you need to call for a rescue team, but could it also play right into the hands of the beast and false prophet when they want to watch and hack and track us? I think it can.
Now, can you explain more about the, XX control of the global financial system, that he wants to use X to do that?
Yeah, so I think from the beginning, all social media was a ploy to just get data. And now that it's become second nature to everyone, it's a natural next step to plug in, the payment systems. And there are many, by the way. I was just talking to someone the other day about Paze, P-A-Z-E. And of course, you've got, Peter Thiel with PayPal and the PayPal mafia. You've got all these other systems. But what X is trying to do is just kind of centralize that all together. I don't know if X is going to ultimately be the final landing spot for the CBDC, the digital ID and digital currency. Maybe. The way I've described it is it's almost like putting up Christmas lights, around your house and around your yard. And, they're all kind of on separate strings and so forth. But at some point, you connect them all to one central power strip, and you turn that power strip on, and they all connect and work together. I think that's where we're headed with this digital currency. I'm not ready to say X is the ultimate version of that, but Musk is the wealthiest man in the world, and he's got access to the smartest people in the world in terms of their technological ability. The Bible talks about intelligence and wisdom being something totally different than the world, which is why the technocracy is burgeoning right now, because most people go, oh, well, Bill Gates and Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and Sam Altman, these guys are so much smarter than me, so I'll just trust them, to do what's right. Well, there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom, and these guys have a lot of knowledge, and they have a lot more knowledge than you or I do when it comes to technology, but they are by no means reflecting the fear of God and a biblical wisdom. So yeah, who knows? But I think Musk is definitely kind of center stage in all of this burgeoning global financial system.
Well, I'm going to read something that you had read, from an article, and it just said Elon Musk says he wants to use X to control the global financial system, a payment processing mechanism. I'm reading this because even though you explained it, I want you to be on the lookout. I want people to be on the lookout for this processing mechanism to enable people to get rid of their banking accounts and use X. No more switching apps or banks, just X. Money database with real-time data processing become half the global financial system. Now, you also mentioned this. I didn't know about this. My son did. You mentioned how he is trying to beat WeChat, a Chinese app. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the narrative. I'm not sure that's really his motive. But yeah, he views, they're creating an enemy. It's the classic Hegelian dialectic. We've got to create a problem so that they can bring us the solution. When the solution is rolled out, it's really what they wanted all along. It's not about protecting us from China. But yeah, the narrative is that he's trying to beat China's version of X, WeChat, to the finish line and make it more all-inclusive and all-encompassing part of our lives. To me, his motive is really beside the point. We know that the technology exists for a full-spectrum planetary control grid, and we know that Musk and the other technocrats are working on it and have the power to do it. That's about all I can say on that. I mean, on some level, probably the financial level and the competition level, he probably does want to kind of beat China to the finish line. But, again, to me, that's a big head fake. It's not about China versus the U.S. It's about the Luciferians versus the rest of the world.
Yeah, well, I was shocked because I didn't realize that they actually that okay, this Chinese app, WeChat, I didn't know about it. Maybe a lot of people do, but that it wasn't just for, payment tool by over a billion people monthly, but that it's also texting and shopping, paying bills. It's like doing
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, it's integrated. You've probably heard me say before, and others have pointed this out too. But China, of course, is further along in terms of how the public has embraced it because they're not a democratic republic. So, we have too many Bible-believing, gun-toting, patriotic Americans that are still a little resistant to this full spectrum takeover. But in China, if you're caught jaywalking, before you get to the other side of the street, they've already debited your bank account, the fine. That's how much surveillance and control they have. So we're getting there here. I was just thinking last night, I was out with Wendy, and I don't know what made me think about it, but I was sitting at a stoplight and I just looked up and it's just surrounded by cameras in a downtown or in the metropolitan area of Colorado Springs. So yeah, it's and I don't, this sounds kind of cynical and negative. I don't mean to be so negative because clearly we know who wins in the end. It's exciting to see this happening. I don't get scared about, Elon Musk and all these other technocrats coming into me. It just says, man, we're knocking on the door of the rapture. But, going back to something we talked about a moment ago, if I may, you're right. Most people still are kind of trapped in this contrived right-left paradigm where they go, well, at least he's not as bad as Kamala. I'm not ready to concede that point because, to use an analogy, if I'm sitting here at my home and we live, fairly remotely, and I see an obvious evil intruder with a ski mask and a gun, and he's walking across our property, headed towards our house, and he starts banging on the door. Man, he's gonna regret that. Let's just say that. Me and 357 of my friends are going to greet him at the door. But what is more scary to me is not that, because I can see that and I'm prepared for it, and I'm not worried about that kind of evil. What scares me more is the secret sort of ninja that sneaks in while my family and I are asleep in the middle of the night, bypasses our cameras. They're able to kind of come in and poison the air or poison our water or do some kind of damage, and I don't even know they're there. That's the difference. So yeah, I get it. Believe me, Kamala is evil to the core, but we know that. I think Christians haven't begun to realize yet just how evil the fake right side of the paradigm is, and so therefore they're sound asleep while these less obvious evils are creeping in all around us.
Yeah, I think what's very, very confusing, Dr. Hickson, is that I know some really amazing Christians that actually know Trump and his team. And it's just like, but I have to keep on looking at, but where are we still headed? So let's say he doesn't know. Just let's say, like you said, let's say he doesn't know all this. The thing is, nothing has stopped. Bible prophecy is speeding along. And that's the thing, because we could argue, like, I know people probably have argued with you. And I know in my comments, people go, oh, no, he's great. No, he's not. How come think he's, I get this all the time.
Oh,
How come you think he's good? How come you think he's bad? It's like, it doesn't really, but my issue is not that. The issue is like what you said is, things are still happening and they're going very fast and the elites are not stopping. And I heard you say that they would never say, oh, 4 years. Oh my goodness. Okay. We're going to have to slow down. I was like,
no doubt. Yeah. I think that's right. And let me just, address the tension and the concern here. First of all, I want to be very clear. I completely respect and have many friends and colleagues and family members who are all in with Trump. I respect that. I get it. I understand it. We have been conditioned over many, many decades, going back to the 40s, going back to World War II, to accept this right-left paradigm. And even though the Overton window has moved further and further and further evil, we still are locked in to this concept of, well, at least it's not a Democrat, right? I get it. I used to be there. I respect it. I'm not expecting everybody to agree with me. I don't even care if people agree with me. I'm just prone to speak my heart. But I do want to be gracious and recognize that you people that say, well, I know Trump, or I know people that know Trump. Well, so do I. I've talked to people who have him literally in their cell phone and could pick him up and call him. I've interviewed people who've known him for decades, going back to the 70s. It's easier to fool people than to convince them they've been fooled. And once you've bought into, the nice Trump, then understandably, it's going to be hard to accept, especially from someone, as conspiracy minded as me, that, hey, he might not be that. But I promise you, I'm not just blowing smoke. I do my research. I'm confident that this is the case. But that said, I totally respect if people aren't there yet. The fact of the matter is, even if Trump means well and he's not a controlled asset, as I believe him to be, even if that's true, for those who believe the best about Trump, and I want to as well, I want to assume that maybe he's not in on it, right? Let's play devil's advocate. Assume he's not in on it. He means well. Well, that you still can't deny that he has made horrific decisions and judgments, such as Operation Warp Speed, and we all know how that ended up. And there was a Netherlands study that showed the devastation of that. You can't have it both ways. If he's truly fighting for the good guys, why doesn't he come out and acknowledge the devastation that what caused back 5 years ago? I mean, he has an easy scapegoat, right? He could blame it on Fauci or Bix or Birx or whatever. He's got plenty of people that he could say, but he doesn't do that. And it's time for Christians to wake up and recognize either he's just got poor judgment, or there's something more nefarious at play.
I want to go back to something with Elon that I didn't know, that I heard you also talk about, and his jacket. About what it said on the jacket, and that he tweeted that phrase after President Trump's election.
Oh yeah, Musk you're talking about?
Yep.
Novus Ordo Seclorum, New World Order. He's mentioned it many times. He tweeted it right after the election. I think it was the next day he was with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and he tweeted it out. Now those who are not willing to see the obvious thing about Musk, which is his history, his satanic history and heritage, and the fact that he wears Baphomets and things like that, they'll say, oh, he just meant that in a generic sense, that we have a new president and it's going to be a new world. Well, that's not what that means. I mean, that is a very powerful term that goes way, way back to the Illuminati and the Freemasons before them, and just the whole, Luciferian elite. It's what they are trying to accomplish globally is a new world order that will be headed up by the fake Trinity, Satan, the Antichrist, and the false prophet. And so, it doesn't surprise me a bit that then a couple months later, after the inauguration, we see this massive influx of New World Order types coming into DC and completely dismantling everything. Now, most Christians are going, yeah, we need to cut waste, and we need to fix this, and we need to fix that, and yay, it's about time. It's never about what it's about, Janie. It's never about what it's about. That's not what this is about. And I think if the rapture doesn't happen soon, and we're in God's sovereignty allowed to live through part of this dismantling of our country, which could very well happen long before the Antichrist takes the helm. We're not promised to be out of here before things get bad. We're just promised to be out of here before the 70th week of Daniel. And if we get to see some of that, I think there's going to be a massive awakening, but I just hope it's not too late.
Yeah. And I also heard you talking about, like the Doge, like the cuts, that it's really about eliminating humans from jobs.
Yeah. I think that's right. I think it's multifaceted, like most things. It's never about just one thing. They love to kill multiple birds with one stone. We know everybody's talking about it, conservatives and liberals alike, the dangers of AI and how that's going to decimate the employment industry. This is just a fast track to do that in certain ways. It's like a foreshadowing of what's to come in a massive scale. So yeah, I think there's a lot going on there. Does that mean that I am displeased with the fact that so many ridiculous departments and government employees are getting acts. No, I think that's good. I'm not going to allow myself to get, drawn into this, golden age, which is another whole discussion, by the way, the whole 7 Mountain Mandate, the golden age, Curtis Yarvin wanting to dismantle the Constitution and install a monarchy. That's a whole separate discussion. But I'm not going to get drawn into this enticement that, because, Elon Musk carries a chainsaw, and that somehow our country's going to be better. That's just not the way it's going to work.
Well, when I, heard you saying that one of the things with the Doge cuts would be like, a lot of humans not having a job, this really struck me. I was looking at Elon Musk's X, and he was showing Optimus bots performing surgery, and it said, no humans in sight by 2035. I'm like, you just revealed yourself there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let's remember the goal of the Luciferians is to reduce the world's population to 500 million. So I did a presentation a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years now, in Orlando on the Luciferian depopulation agenda. And I documented this in a number of different ways. We have a chapter on it in volume 2 of the 3-volume set. I think it's chapter 13. But yeah, they definitely want to get rid of human beings. They want just enough left behind to serve them their coffee, clean their floors and climb atop the satanic altars to be sacrificed. But they do not need 8 billion people. They don't want 8 billion people. They want this planet to themselves. And so they're definitely doing all they can to eliminate humanity. That's on record. I mean, think about the Georgia Guidestones. Think about, the Club of Rome and its depopulation agenda, those kinds of things.
Well, speaking of that, so what do you think of the UK and dimming the sun?
Yeah, well, we were way out front talking about geoengineering and all of those things way back.
Right, it's in your books. Yep.
Yep, and it's in volume 1. But even way before that, in my first attempt to expose some of this was in 2012 in my book, The Great Last Days Deception. It's there's no question that this is a global phenomena. They call it stratospheric aerosol injection or chemical ice nucleation or solar radiation management. That's what they're doing in Europe. So it's everywhere. It's not about saving us from climate change. That's the reason they claim they're doing it, is that we've got, because of anthropogenic, climate change, we've got this existential threat. Same argument they used, by the way, with the pandemic. There's an existential threat. We're going to come together and rescue the world from it. Well, that's what they're doing with climate change. But as I've said already several times on the program, it's never about what it's about. So, yeah, they're not just dimming the sun. I think there's something far worse going on.
Well, they always create a boogeyman that we have to fight. But there was something I just found, Dr. Hickson, and you may know about this, but and again, in your books, you talk about the geoengineering, but a lot of people have been showing pictures on X of our skies look pretty, dim. And here, in fact, I met this new neighbor, and they said, oh, the reason why I moved down south is because up north in Connecticut, we never have blue skies. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it's that bad there. But then the pictures that they're showing in the UK, now that they're admitting that they're doing these experiments, I mean, it's so very thick. And I'll show some pictures. But this I found interesting. I didn't know this. They said this technology, it was found in the 1920s. In the 1920s, tests were done by U.S. Navy and Air Force. So can you imagine, this is like 100 years old that they knew how to do this with airplanes putting out smoke from titanium dioxide, which causes cancer, respiratory problems, DNA damage, and aerosol hydrochloride acid, which causes cardiovascular symptoms. And they were using it against their enemies. So here they knew they had this technology 100 years ago.
Oh yeah, no question. It goes way, way back. We talk about that in the chapter on geoengineering, Spirit of the Antichrist, Volume 1. I forget the chapter number, but it's titled Geoengineering. It goes back to Operation Popeye, weather modification, all kinds of historical examples of now, unveiled military and government operations to tinker with the heavenlies, the atmosphere right above us, the first heaven. And it's for multiple reasons. I mean, China has a weather modification office. And during the Olympics, when they hosted the Olympics, they were out front talking about, we don't have to worry about it. Will there be enough snow? We're gonna make it snow, no problem. And and they still use it. So all of these fires and droughts and floods, all of that is engineered. It's called geoengineering. And what's really sad is it's not like it's all sort of monolithic where certain satanic bad guys are trying to destroy the earth. I mean, there's some of that going on, but a lot of it is this technology is available to a lot of powerful people. And so, I mean, we saw this in Canada a few years ago when when the prime minister gets mad at one region of Canada because the leader there didn't fall in line over some of the dictates that he was issuing. He just used geoengineering to devastate the area with the fires. They'll start fires, they'll start droughts. That's why we've had so many, unprecedented things happen.
Well, now I also have heard you talking about just other signs of Jesus coming back soon, and one is the upsurge of the paranormal. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so that's volume 2 of the 3-volume set where we talk about the phenomenalistic stuff. But yeah, remember, ultimately, it's a cosmic battle. So when things are heating up on Earth, it just means they're heating up in the heavenlies. So it started in the heavenlies when Satan orchestrated a coup that was rebuffed, and it's now spilling over into here. So ever since World War II, when Israel became a nation again, Satan has been on high alert, recognizing that his time is short. He knows that according to God's plans, Israel plays a key role in the end times. It's from Israel that Christ is going to rule and reign with a rod of iron. So absolutely, when he heard talk of Israel being reconstituted as a nation again, he shifted it into high gear. He's not omnipresent, so he needs his demons to go throughout the earth and run reconnaissance missions. That's what a lot of this UFO, UAP activity is, as I describe in the book. The dawn of the modern UFO era started in 1947, again, in the context of Israel becoming a nation again, with the Mount Rainier and the one in Roswell incident in New Mexico. So, and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And then in 2017, during the first Trump administration, we saw them finally just come right out and say, yeah, we've been tracking this stuff since 1947. We've got buildings full of data and documentation. We are gravely concerned about what's happening in the skies. We can't explain it. We don't understand it. It's not of this world. So we're going to create the Space Force to help combat it. And I talked to someone at the Space Force, a decorated officer who was, when they were first forming it, he moved there. And he said, yeah, they're telling you it's simply another branch of the military to provide ground support for our troops in this technological age. But he said, no, that may be part of it, but it's because we are very concerned about what's out there and we can't explain it. So we believe from a biblical worldview that it's not little green men from Mars. It's dimensional. It's demonic. But yeah, it's becoming, I mean, we're seeing more and more signs of this type of stuff every day.
Now, can you explain how close do you think we are to World War III as far as like the tensions? Like, do you think we're getting it very close?
I mean, that's a tough one. I could see several scenarios playing out. It's just total speculation. But if we look at the biblical teaching on the end times, we know there are several end times wars, most notably the Ezekiel 38 war, 38 and 39, Gog, Magog. We know that from the Luciferians' plan, they have to destroy to build back, right? Order out of chaos. Again, going back to that Friedrich Hegel and the whole concept of the Hegelian dialectic. So order out of chaos. They've got to destroy so they can build it back. We know that the United States does not play a role in the big picture of Satan's regime during the tribulation period. So therefore, we've got to be somehow neutralized. I don't believe they're going to destroy the infrastructure of this country, because America has too much power and too many resources that could aid the beast system. But I do think they're going to bring us to our knees somehow and force America to give up its national sovereignty and join in with a global system. If you believe the Bible, we're headed towards a one world system. It will ultimately be led by Jesus Christ, God's Son and our Savior, who died and rose again for our sins. I mean, if you don't know the Lord, please, we implore you, today's the day of salvation. Place your faith in Christ. He's the only one that can save you from your sin. But we're headed towards a one world system, one way or the other, no question about it. The first part of that's going to be led by Satan. And so I do think there's a scenario according to which a war breaks out, whether that's centered around Iran and Israel, or North Korea or South Korea, or Russia, Ukraine. Somehow I could envision the United States being brought in through NATO or just on their own to this global conflagration that quickly gets out of hand. And then we're sort of brought to our knees. I have no confidence in our leadership. With all due respect, I don't think a Fox News host is the best guy to be running the United States military, especially since he likes to, disperse our war plans on social media. But I'd have no confidence in the leaders that are kind of running things. I think we will bungle something. And the first thing you know, America will have no choice but to sign on to the one world system. Only thing that remains to be seen is, will that happen before the rapture or after the rapture?
Well, thank you so much for all your information. Now, how can people find you? And people need to keep on watching your podcasts and follow your ministry, because you're always revealing things that are happening behind the scenes and things that are hidden in plain sight, the lies that are hidden in plain sight. Your information is amazing. So how can people find you? And
thank you, Jamie. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity just to share some of this. And again, I want to encourage people, don't stop searching. Don't just take my word for this stuff. I don't mean to offend. I want you to continue to study the word first and foremost, and then look at everything that's happening through the lens of Scripture. Don't just assume it's true because some Republican said it's true. The best way to get the books is just to go to spiritoftheantichrist.org, spiritoftheantichrist.org. They're available in print, in Kindle. We also sell them in PDF format. You can get them in audiobooks through Audible, or we sell the MP3s as well. Our main website is notbyworks.org. We also have a fantastic free app. If you search the App Store or Google Play Store for NBW Ministries, NBW stands for Not By Works, but just search NBW Ministries. You can stay in touch with us there. And we're so blessed. Every day we do a different interview with some really great Bible teachers and Bible prophecy experts. My son Morgan came to work for us a couple of months ago, and he now is co-hosting the show with me a couple of days a week. That's always fun. But I'm like, you talk about the information we're getting out there. I feel like a kid in a candy shop. Every day I get to sit and listen to these people like Patrick Wood and Tom Hughes and whoever, and just learn and get information and grow. So notbyworks.org.
So guys, he put down a lot of information, and rather than stopping the video, I just commented in the comment section. Well, you probably can't see it because if you're not on Facebook, okay? But if you're on YouTube, you won't be able to see it. But I wanted to share with you that this man is so on point that we need more people like him. And I just want to say Godspeed to him and to his ministry. I want to say Godspeed to him and to his ministry. Okay. So really quick, I think there's one other video. We're not going to hold you too much longer. Wanted to be thorough and wanted to let this be a blessing to continue to give you the information that is coming on. I will be coming on tomorrow, God spare. and I will be trying my very best to bring the word of God that he gave me. Sometimes I don't like to rush it because I know that there's a lot going on. So, but with that being said, if I come on tomorrow, I'll be bringing the word of God. If not, we'll do another informational video. Hopefully we can bring the word. Amen. And for any reason, if I'm not on here and I'm not bringing the preach word or whatever, you can always go back. We have thousands of videos of me preaching and doing informational videos. Y'all, sometimes you overlook things, or sometimes listening to a message, it may hit another way. Amen. It is very difficult to continually do certain things back to back to back to back and not take that break. So sometimes I just pull back so that I can do more for the kingdom of God. So I try to mix it up a little bit. Okay. With that being said, I wanted to share this video with you all. Brother James sent this video to me, and let's take a look at it.
To the podcast. We're going to bring him in. We're going to get some insights from him, and we're just going to go over some headlines, and we're going to get some prophetic perspectives on everything from the possible peace accords that are in the making, dealing with Syria, dealing with Israel, the expansion of the Abraham Accords, new information coming out, brand.
Before we go further, I want to first of all thank and pray, let you know that I'm praying for each and every one of you guys that are a blessing to this ministry. If you have sowed into this ministry throughout the week, or if you are a partner with us, I want to say thank you. If God places it in your heart, you can go ahead and release your seed into this ministry to continue to support and sustain this ministry. I also want to thank those of you that have joined our channel over there on YouTube, and some of you have subscribed to our channel on Facebook. Thank you for joining the channel. We do have exclusive content for those of you, and it just is another way for you to help support the ministry that is keeping you alerted and alarmed. You know, I was listening to this guy the other day, and I said I would play this for the fueling station. I won't go deep into what it was talking about, but they began to talk about the importance of your leaders being able to be fully committed to that assignment and what they're doing. And I can tell you that that is a yes. Many people are on social media and they have all kinds of opinions and things that they can say, what they feel that a man or woman of God should be doing. But God gave the man or woman of God that particular job so that they can focus on that job and do well at it. You know, it's hard to multitask and be spread it thin, and then all of a sudden you're not able to commit and give your all to that ministry. So it's very important that we support the things of God and the people of God so that they can be able to do what they're doing effectively. Okay. So with that being said, please release your seeds into the ministry and continue to be a blessing to this ministry. For those of you that are faithful in sowing and giving, may the Lord bless your giving. I pray that all blessings that is supposed to come to you, that they will not be hindered, but that all blessings will flow to you on a continual basis. That's what I want to be. I want to be able to always be blessed so that I can always be a blessing. And that is what I pray for you and your house. I don't just pray that you receive financial blessings, but I also pray that God will keep you and sustain you, bless your marriages, bless your businesses, and bless and keep your family. All of your families. Okay. With that being said, we're going to go and get into this part of the video. Guys, tag somebody, share the video so that they can come back and watch the replay. We know we are on late. I stay up late sometimes. And so I know some of you are up at night. And so we can always do something effective. And that means you can be watching this. Also, you could be on your treadmill walking at the same time while you're walking, listening to this. Okay. That's just killing two birds with one stone. I'm just saying.
New that's making its rounds all over prophetic circles regarding the red heifers. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to get into much more. But before we get started, you already know what to do. Hit that like button. That's going to help push us out. It's going to help get eyes on our program. And it's going to be beneficial to you if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, and also on Rumble as well, or whatever platform you may be viewing from. And of course, we welcome our podcasters, Apple, Spotify, and all of you guys as well. We appreciate you as well. And as we always want to encourage you guys, take it a step further. Pick up our free app. You can pick it up today on Apple, Android, whatever your device is. We've got you covered. Just go to your Play Store, type in End Time Headlines. You're going to see our official trademark ETH logo right there. Download. If you're watching this by the visual, if you just go into the description of this video, it'll say download our free app. You just download it or click on the link. It'll take you there and it'll walk you through how to download. Then hit yes to push notifications. You're going to get every prophecy update, every breaking news, every headline, excuse me, every podcast, and everything's going to be readily available. So without further ado, guys, we want to welcome our very special guest. We got him coming back. He is the one and only from Prophecy Watchers. We got Mondo Gonzalez with us.
It's great to be here.
Good to have you back, brother. So we got a lot going on. I caught one of your videos this week because there was a situation that happened in Israel that caught a lot of attention. We'll get into that just a moment. But before we do, why don't you go ahead and just in case somebody might be in here and they might be slipping in the podcast or watching or listening, and maybe they've never heard of you or Prophecy Watchers, I'd love for you to go ahead and introduce yourself and where we can find you and follow you and keep up with your ministry.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Short story. I got saved at 18 and then later became a pastor. I was a pastor for about 16 years. And then came to Prophecy Watchers back in 2021, right at kind of the height of COVID. And of course, the world hasn't been the same since then. And we do a lot of things. We have a television program, a weekly podcast, a magazine, and we have our Psalm 19 project, which explores the heavens and through astrophotography. So we're really busy doing a variety of things. And of course, I've loved Israel from the time I got saved at 18. And I went to my undergrad is in Jewish studies. And so I went to school looking at, again, all things Israel, past, present, and even future. And then I went and got a master's degree in archaeology because I wanted to know more about the land of Israel and the history of Israel. But if people go to prophecywatchers.com, you can see all the different places where we're at. We have Prophecy Watchers has a big presence out there on social media as well.
Sounds great. And again, be sure to look for him, follow him. And you guys are on Christian television as well. I know you're on Daystar, right? Are you on TBN as well?
No, we're not on TBN.
Okay.
We're on CTN and a couple other. We're on 35 different networks, but we're out there.
Okay. So it'll be easy to find you guys. So, all right. So let's get right into this. The first article that I want to talk about is this one coming out of Israel. We're just going to go straight into this thing and talk about this. This is give me just a second. I've got the wrong one up here. Oh, no, this is it, I think. The whole thing's not coming on here, but I'm going to read this to you in case you guys can't see this. Biblical red heifer ritual comes to life in rehearsal ceremony. A red heifer raised in Israel was disqualified for sacrifice after 2 black hairs were discovered on its body, and it was used in a practice burning ceremony for priests. Now, you guys that are watching this, you guys watching by YouTube, by Rumble, this is an actual image. I would hit the video, but I don't want to get hit with a copyright because I know some of these sources, they'll get you on those copyrights. But this was an actual thing that took place. And again, they're talking about this was a almost like a, I don't know, would you call it a dry run? What would you call this? What information do you have on this, Mondo? Is this something we should be excited about? Is it a prelude? Are they warming up for the big event?
Yes, I did reach out to Byron Stinson, who is the main guy, the main American rep, who was the one that brought over the 5 red heifers back in September of 2022. And he is the leader of again, the American side of what's called Boneh Israel, Beoneh, Israel.com. And also, if you want to follow his work, he has if you go to Facebook, he has, or Temple, it's Temple 3, TEMPL 3.com. You can find him there. But he has been involved from the beginning. And as I reached out to him, he said, no, clearly this was us. We did burn a cow as a practice, as a rehearsal for the plans that they have underway. I mean, they originally had planned this for April of 24, just a little over a year ago. That got interrupted by the comments of Hamas in January of 2024, saying that they committed their atrocities in October of 23 because of the red heifers. So everything got kind of put on hold a year ago. But what Byron told me was that they are still moving forward in trying to get permitting and everything else as it relates to the ceremony. So there was a practice ceremony that it wasn't so much a red heifer back in 2019 by a professor at Bar Ilan University. And he was just doing it to get the measurements and other things kind of in anticipation. But this one was officially done by the Boneh Israel group, which owns the other 5 red heifers. So 100%. Should we be excited about it? Well, I'm excited about the fact that this points to the preparations continuing for the building of the third temple. I had just released a book. I wrote an entire book on the red heifer and all the Jewish background and stuff, and it just released in March. And the reason I did it is anticipating exactly this kind of stuff, in that when this ceremony happens, what does it really mean? And so again, I go through the whole deep dive into the book. But what you're seeing right now is the temple, the third temple, has been in motion for a long time, probably for at least 25 years. They have everything completed for that. And so that's exciting to me, because it shows us that we're getting closer and closer to the time, because we know there is going to be a temple at the end of the age during at least the tribulation period. So for them, they need the red heifer. They need to have it. They need to have the ashes from it in order to use the temple. So this practice run is, this is unparalleled, truly an official red heifer, just barely disqualified. This is the first one that has been rehearsal practiced in 2,000 years. So that says something.
Wow. So exciting. So, so this, this is something that's being anticipated in all prophetic circles. And anytime, the Temple Institute gives a new update or something comes out there, people just really get excited about that. And I knew as soon as I saw this was going to make a lot of, and it is, it's, we, within about a day, we were kind of silent about this. And we had all kinds of people emailing us, messaging us, what does this mean? Or why aren't you discussing this? So I knew when I had you on, that was one of the first things I wanted to talk about this. So I want to go on to another story here. And this one, again, we're going to go through a couple things here that has made headlines. Right here, this one, Trump signs executive order lifting sanctions on Syria. What is in your opinion, what does this mean? Is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? Because again, depending on who you listen to, some praise this as great, others not so much.
Well, I think it's just a hair, not totally, but it's a hair premature to make a final decision. This is what we know. Jolani, the new leader of Syria, is a butcher. Okay, he just is. He's an Islamic butcher. He is a Sunni, and he obviously forced Assad out. Assad was a Shiite who was very well connected with Iran, and of course with Hezbollah as well. So when he comes in, he takes over. It was amazing what he did, how fast he got it. So they came in as well, and he let his cronies go and butcher men, women, and children of the Alawites that were, again, Shiites. So when you look at this, I've been shocked at watching his development, because here's a guy that normally you see him with a scarf around his head and he's got a gun on him, and now he's parading around in a suit.
Right.
And he's being welcomed by Macron of France and the UK and other things like this. And so there's no doubt that what Trump is doing, I think it's rewarding a butcher, but yet let me just say it a different way. It's very pragmatic what Trump is doing. And so the surprising thing is that this Jolani character comes out of nowhere, so to speak. He has been very careful not to attack any Israel sites, not like the predecessor. He has restrained any conflict with Israel. In fact, shockingly, as soon as he came in, Israel spent the next 3 months during this transition phase bombing as much as they could of the previous Assad weaponry all across the country. I mean, Israel just said, we're not going to let the gas, the chemicals, all this stuff, all the equipment get in the hands of Jolani. Jolani did nothing about it. So that's kind of just a little bit of a history. But with Trump doing this, Trump wants to be the guy. Okay. Look, Trump's out for a legacy. Yeah. Let's not be so. No, but that doesn't surprise anybody.
Right. That's what we've been saying that too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. He wants to be the guy that brings the peace to the Middle East. We know that he started this with the Abrahamic Accords in his first administration towards the end in 2020. So he also has been very good at throwing out, like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna break the mold. And so by removing sanctions on an official terrorist government with just a different terrorist coming to the leadership, that's very bold on his part. It's very risky. But it seems to me so far that Jolani is, he has several names. I'm just going to go by Jolani, that he is interested in having some sort of recognition as a new government leader. I think that's what he's wanting. He's looking for legitimization, and he's getting it. So I think this is going to help him get that. And if that means having peace with Israel for now, I think he's going to go down that road.
I think a lot of people are apprehensive because of his background. And I know in Islam, now don't ask me to give the correct terminology of this, but I'm going to give you kind of a summary of this. But they can use deception, and they don't find this to be wrong. And again, according to their beliefs, if it benefits them in their mission. And this is kind of way, it's almost like, and I hate to use this analogy, but it just comes to my mind that, you had Saul of Tarsus, who had a bloody background, one that was persecuting the church. We know his background. Then he gets he has a radical encounter with God. He's converted to Paul. Now he's raised up to preach to Gentiles. And in the beginning, none of the disciples wanted to be around this guy. Nobody wanted to do missionary work with him. They didn't want to travel with him. They didn't want to have anything to do with this guy. I'm not, and by any means, guys, I'm not equating the Syrian president to the Apostle Paul. I'm just saying we by nature are going to be apprehensive based on the past. And look, let's just be honest. Also, Syria has a history against Israel. Syria has a prophecy over them. And having said that, I want to get right into this headline. I'm gonna just pull this up here and pull the whole full screen article up here. Benjamin Netanyahu is set to meet with Syrian leader at historic White House summit brokered by Trump. Now I'm gonna read this a little bit, Mondo, and get your thoughts on this. The Syrian leader and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have agreed to a historic meeting at the White House. Now, this is coming in September, probably close to Rosh Hashanah or Rosh Hashanah, however you pronounce that, which could pave the way towards normalization between the two countries. So this thing is going even a step further in what could be a possible quote-unquote peace agreement. The meeting between the leaders of Israel and Syria, two countries that have had adversarial relationships for decades, will occur before the annual UN General Assembly meeting. Although details remain secret, interesting, Netanyahu and al-Shara are expected to discuss the first stage of security agreements. They're calling these security agreements between the two countries, as well as steps leading towards full diplomatic recognition and normalization of ties. Now, here's the caveat. Netanyahu and al-Shara are expected to sign a security agreement, interesting, under the guise of, or under the I guess, I don't know what you, the supervision or the agreement of U.S. President Donald Trump, who's going to broker this. That's what I should say. He's going to broker this quote unquote security agreement. So, what is your thoughts on this? Do you think this is going to hold? And is this something leading to? And let me say this before I get into this. In Daniel 9:27, I've always interpreted that as when it says that the Antichrist will confirm a treaty. It's almost, when you look up the word confirm, and I know there's different various interpretations of this, but it almost looks as if if I was to confirm something, there is a foundation or there is a framework that's already set in place, and then I just come along and confirm it. So, and I've always thought that when Daniel 9:27 comes to fruition, there's going to be treaties, if you would, that's going to lead up to that, the big one of Daniel 9:27. Do you believe that this could be part of that framework leading and pushing? I'm not saying that Trump's the Antichrist by any means. What I'm saying is, are these stepping stones, prophetic stepping stones, to get us to that?
You know, I kind of have a different perspective on Daniel 9:27, but it plays in that if you, like you just said, the Hebrew there is not really decisive as it relates to strengthen or confirm. Some versions will just say he makes a covenant. And so the Hebrew verb there is again, it's a very interesting form of the Hebrew verb. And so you can't be dogmatic about that, strength and confirm. But the way that I see it is that Daniel 9:27 is not about a peace covenant at all, honestly, because nowhere in the context does it say anything about peace. It just doesn't. I think it has been so repeated. Again, I learned that, well, this is a peace agreement. And so, but I think what's being said there is, if we look at the context, of course, context, we have to find it in scripture. And the context of Daniel 9:27, if you look at the word berit in Hebrew, it's the word covenant. And if you look at it in other parts of Daniel, it always refers to the Mosaic covenant. It's nothing about a separate peace agreement. But however, so in that saying, and I certainly can't go into all the details now, but the covenant that he confirms, that he strengthens, is the Mosaic covenant in the land of Israel. So that's what the Jews want right now. The rabbis want. What do they want? They want Moses. They want Moses, and the covenant there is the Mosaic covenant. So you can see there. I don't know if you could pull up the ESV as an example. You'll see.
Yeah, I can. Give me just a second, and I'll do that.
Yeah, let's try it, because you'll see some versions will just say, "He shall make a strong covenant." So you see there, it has nothing to do with confirmation. But the key thing in this, I'll throw it out there for the sake of being conclusive. If you look, what's the context? The next section, it says, and for half the week or the middle of the week, he'll put an end to the sacrifices and offerings. Well, you think, well, sacrifices and offering, what does that have to do with peace? Nothing specifically, but it has everything to do with the Mosaic covenant. The whole Mosaic covenant is about sacrifices and offerings. So
right.
To me, this is about the Antichrist comes. Again, if you went to a rabbi today, and I won't belabor this too long. If you went to a rabbi today,
no, you're fine.
If you said, when the Messiah comes, what's he going to do? They'll say, oh, he's going to restore the temple to us. He's going to rebuild the temple. He's going to restore Moses throughout all the land of Israel. And right now, if you know the law, the law of Moses, as we understand in the Old Testament, most Israelis don't follow that. and it makes the religious rabbis upset. They want this everywhere.
Right.
And so I think what's being said in Daniel 9:27 is when this figure comes, he's going to confirm the Mosaic covenant in the land. And actually the Hebrew word means he's going to cause to prevail. That's literally what it means. But this still, so if I look at that, if somebody asks me, Mondo, does all of this Abrahamic stuff, does that contribute to Daniel 9:27? I say, no, not at all. So it's not prophetic. I didn't say that. I think more what it's confirming is all of these alliances that are happening with, again, all the Abrahamic Accords, all the others, Sudan, Somalia. It's contributing to setting the stage for Ezekiel 38. Because what do we know in Ezekiel 38? They are living, and it doesn't use the word shalom, the word peace, shalom, but it says they're living quietly. They're living securely there. And so what this is all doing is setting the stage for Ezekiel 38 rather than Daniel 9:27, because as you said, most people see the guy that confirms, this is the traditional approach. The guy that confirms or makes a covenant, a peace agreement with Israel is going to be the Antichrist. And so now it's understandable why everybody would be looking and going, oh, but I look and say, I don't think that's the proper interpretation anyway. It's not about peace. Again, show me anywhere in there where the word peace appears. Zero.
Well, they equate it with 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, I believe, where it says, when they shall say peace and safety. Again, this is why I love this, because you get two trains of thought. You get two different interpretations, which is good. This is a good, healthy thing to have this dialogue and this conversation, because our audience knows this. I get on our people they'll argue about the rapture, and people are like, well, I don't believe in the rapture, or it's pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib. I'm like, guys, it's not a salvation issue. We have bigger fish to fry than sit and split hairs about this stuff. Just be ready, be watchful, and you're going to be fine. Just prepare as if you're going to endure. And if we get taken out by the rapture, praise God. You know what I'm saying? So I don't split hairs about this stuff. Now that I've heard your thoughts on this, though, I want to take a different angle on this. I want to show you this. Let me pull this up. Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu's two-state vision. Now, in this article, and again, this was from an Israeli source here. They talk about, in this article, they talk about the possibility of when, and this is a little bit older when this was published, but they were referring to the meetings that just took place in the White House with Benjamin Netanyahu and Trump. And again, we don't fully know. It's not being disclosed a lot of information on what actually went on behind the scenes. And as far as the language and the agreements and the proposals. So again, that was that one source we talked about with the Syrian President Netanyahu in September. That was just released, I think yesterday. In the White House, in this article, it talks about that they're pushing for a two-state solution, and the Syrian president, one of the things he said was they will never accept this two-state solution lest Israel give up portions of the Golan Heights. And basically what this sums up to be is the dividing of Jerusalem. Now, I've always warned, based on Zechariah 12, Joel chapter 3, that if our hands are involved in dividing Jerusalem, this is bad news. Do you agree or disagree with that?
100% agree.
Okay. I had a feeling you were going to say that on that. And because we're trying to swim through waters of, I've never seen in my, I've been serving the Lord for 25 years, and probably the last 2 years, there has been, I call it the spirit of Antichrist that has really infiltrated the church. And you've got these replacement theologists, you've got anti-Semitism like never before. These people call themselves Christians, and they completely throw Israel under the bus. They curse Israel. They attack Israel every keystroke they can. They verbally do this. And it's crazy. I've never seen anything like this. And it just shows you, in my opinion, it shows you the environment that we're in right now. It's a very dangerous environment. So when I see stuff like that, that bothers me. And and I'm sure you understand. I'm sure you are familiar with some of these books that have been written about the connection between disasters and the division of Israel. And Mondo, we had this conversation, I think, in a couple of our podcasts. I said, the thing that concerns me about all these crazy storms that we're getting in America, I mean, we're talking about unprecedented rainfalls. Everybody knows what happened in Texas. Then you had stuff like this once in 500-year floods, once in 1,000-year floods. You had it in Texas. You had it in Chicago. You had it in New Mexico. North Carolina got hit with this, and I immediately began to wonder, is there something going on? Is there negotiations being even verbalized behind closed doors in the White House? And that's a huge concern for me. I'd love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, we have. I've interviewed several times Bill Koenig.
Yes.
He wrote the book Eye to Eye, and where he documents hundreds and hundreds of cases going back years. I mean, probably at least a decade, when he was going back to Obama, because he was the White House correspondent during the Obama years. And he just told me recently that he has volume 2 that he's working on as well. So
wow.
For him, he's provided a very compelling case of this correlation, especially because we know in Luke 12, right? To whom much is given, much is required. America has been given a tremendous amount of light, gospel light in its history. And so we should know better with the history that we have. And so I think there's no doubt. I wonder the same thing. I do think that Trump learned a lesson from his mistake in his first administration. So far, what I've seen, even with, again, Jolani just making these out of the gate requirements, that his exact quote was, "Normalization with Israel isn't free." Okay. So he brought up the stuff with the Golan Heights. However, in discussions with Trump and other things, like 2 days later, he backed off from that. And so I don't know what the story was, as whether Trump turned around and not, I wouldn't say threatened force, but said, you know what, I'm going to pull everything out and you will not get your legitimization or your normalization with America. And of course, we know that Syria is tremendously economically suppressed because of sanctions and other things. And so I think right now, at least as you said earlier, in Islam, it's okay to lie. It's okay to lie and deceive in order to get the bigger goal. So right now, Jelani's goal is not peace with Israel. It is stability as its new leader. And of course, he's going to be in power for at least 4 years based on their constitution that's in the works. It's in a probationary period. But I think he wants more than anything else to stick around. And so and he knows as well that Trump means business. And so if he doesn't agree to what Trump's demands are, he won't be in power at all. And so I really think he'll capitulate, just like, honestly, Trump has been a master negotiator with tariffs and everything else. We've seen it. So I think that Trump's going to win on this, and he's not going to throw Israel under the bus.
Wow. It's so interesting to see how all this is going to just unfold. I always tell people, just buckle up and enjoy the ride. Let's move on to this one. I want to show you this. Here, we'll go to full screen here. This is a billboard that this was touted in Israel. This was an actual billboard, and it highlights the Abraham Alliance peace vision. I'm going to read some of these subtitles. Billboard shows Trump regional leaders under Abraham Alliance. Israeli groups hope Trump will renew push for Middle East normalization. Trump hails peace efforts at NATO. And by the way, Netanyahu just nominated him for the peace.
The Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, Nobel Peace Prize. Thank you. And then, so here it is. The new billboard unveiled in Israel features images of regional leaders currently in the Middle East, including President Trump, alongside the words, "The Abraham Alliance. It's time for a new Middle East." Now, I want to pull this up here for everybody to see this, because that's interesting. On there, you have Trump, you have Netanyahu, and you have 8 other Middle Eastern leaders. So, Mondo, you and I talked off camera on this. I want to kind of get this into the podcast. There is basically two trains of thought. Now, when we're talking about the 10 kings, because when this went viral in prophecy circles. They were all over this and said, could this be? And what do I mean by that is, in the book of Daniel, Daniel saw that there was this image that Nebuchadnezzar, he had this dream. Daniel interpreted it. He saw this great image. When you get all the way, the heads of gold, everybody knows this, the head of gold, the arms of what is it, brass, and then you had the waist of bronze, and then you had the legs of iron, and then it was east and west. Then you had the 10 toes, which are the 10 kings or the 10 kingdoms in the last days. And that's what Daniel saw, and he interpreted that. And then you got John the Revelator, who brings them up in Revelation 17. And he actually gives more detail than Daniel. And he tells us that those 10 kings will eventually give their power over to the beast in 1 hour. And Daniel says, consequently enough, that among those 10, the little horn rises up, which in my opinion, I believe that's the Antichrist. Don't know your thoughts on that, but he rises up among them, speaking pompous things, and he uproots 3 of the 10, which is Egypt, Libya, and Ethiopia. Now, again, the two trains of thought are that these 10 kings are traditionally taught that the 10 kingdoms are they will come out of the Roman revised region of the revised Roman Empire. European nations could be east, west. They'll come up out of that. Or now there's, I guess, a new train of thought that's coming out. I don't know if it's new, but I've heard it over the last probably 10 years that these could be Middle Eastern nations, and consequently, Egypt, Libya, and Ethiopia are 3 of those 10 that are uprooted, and these will be predominantly Arab Islamic nations. Again, love to hear your thoughts on this, and if so, this kind of goes back to about 15 minutes ago when we talked about the Abraham Accords, the eventually leading up to Daniel 9:27, because many interpret that when it says that he makes a covenant with many, they interpret that as a treaty, as he signs his treaty with Israel and with the many nations for 7 years. So we already know your thoughts and your interpretation of that, of Daniel 9:27. So I guess my question is, what are your thoughts on the 10 kings, who they could be, who to look for, and your thoughts on that?
Yeah, let me I'll add one more thing on the Daniel 9:27, in that when it says he will confirm covenant with the many, it's very specific in Hebrew, lavrav. That again, when you're doing interpretation, I always look and I think, I can read Hebrew, so you're like, okay, where does this phrase appear? It's a very specific phrase, lavrav in Hebrew, right? So what you do is I encourage anybody to do this. If you have the computer software, you just highlight. It has a lamed preposition on the front. Highlight it, right click, and search for it, and it appears in Daniel 11:33. And just for the sake of clarity, it's not many nations. It's referring to Israel. It very clearly, the word many refers to the nation Israel. So to me, even going back to that, again, you always look, how did Daniel use this phrase in the other parts of his book? That helps. And in Daniel chapter 11, it shows us this isn't a broad coalition of nations. This is with Israel, the many. So again, and it's referring to the covenant as well in Daniel 11, but which is a great parallel passage. So all that being said, there's a couple other interpretations that you have as it relates to the 10 kings. As you mentioned, you have Europe, you have the Middle East. A third alternative that's been around a long time, going back to the Treaty of Rome in the early 70s, when the Treaty of Rome came up with, it divided the world into 10 regions, right?
Yeah, I remember
and so North American Union, South American Union, etc. And so that has been a strong contender in dispensational thought for a long time. And then there's even a fourth position, which is that these 10 kings in Revelation 17, in fact, it says in Revelation 17:12 that they're not kings. It says they don't have a kingdom. at all. So
Right.
these are kings without a kingdom, and they operate like kings. And then in verse 13, it says, as you said, they give their power and authority over to the beast for this short period of time. And so a lot of people have made the comment that they believe they're not kings or people of a geographical region, but they're people of power and influence transcendently over the world in other ways, and in many ways, technocrats. So I actually lean in that way. I think it's solid, but that's a whole nother thing. But nevertheless, what do you see? One of the challenges that you would have here is that these particular nations, they are very limited. Whatever happens with the 10 kings, this is a global system. This is something that, in a lot of these guys, if you look at Revelation 17, and here's what I mean by that, in Daniel 7, which is where they primarily are, you do have the 10 toes in Daniel 2. It's not focused specifically around Israel. And so to see the 10 kings specifically focused on Israel, I think would be a little narrow. What you see again in Revelation 17 is it is worldwide. We know from Revelation chapter 13 that the Antichrist has this over every tribe, tongue, nation, and people. So whatever their influence is, it has to do with establishing his global empire rather than just simply being a localized peace agreement or a peace solidifier in the land of Israel, specifically with the surrounding nations. But never again. So as we've been saying, there's a lot of different interpretations. This is in salvation history, which is kind of fun. But what I still see this as being prophetic, because as I mentioned earlier, all of this is going to where it's contributing to the lack of adversity, or the lack of acrimony that Israel has with its neighbors as we approach. Because I really do think one of the next things on the agenda is Ezekiel 38. And so this idea of them living without walls and border, and this is all wonderful and great. All of this stuff right now with increased prosperity, right? So Israel is already doing very, very well. But can you imagine they make peace with Saudi Arabia, Syria, the prosperity? Look, these countries, they want to be an economic partnership with Israel. Israel is in the top 10 in so many in technology, artificial intelligence, medical, as we said, they're in arms, and all these technologies, businesses, they are phenomenal. And these surrounding countries, who are desert countries like Israel once was, they want a piece of the action. And so all of this stuff that Trump is doing, his vision for the new Middle East. I mean, it was a few months ago. Remember the video of Gaza Trump? Trump Gaza. I mean, he posted it, but this is his vision of economic prosperity. Of course, him getting the credit for that. I think that all this stuff going on is setting the stage for what Ezekiel 38 says: have you come for spoil? Have you come to steal? So that's one of the questions. That who is it? That's Sheba and Dedan. Well, who's Sheba and Dedan? That's Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
clearly. And so for them to be involved on that day, they're not going to get involved. But if they're going to say, hey, I mean, think about it. Let's give it, just throw a number out, 4 or 5 years of economic prosperity between Saudi Arabia and Israel. And then all of a sudden, Israel's going to be attacked. Well, Saudi Arabia now has economic investments going on in that relationship. So I still see it prophetically, but not necessarily connected with the 10 kings directly.
Well, I got to ask you this. Psalm 83 war, has it been fulfilled, or is that a future war? I know what Amir, I know what his thought is on that.
Oh yeah. I'm super good friends with Bill Salas, and I think that he has made a great case for Psalm 83 for sure. Is it 100% conclusive? No, but what it is demonstrated, and him and I have talked about this, is that nowhere, I will say this, nowhere in history can you show that Psalm 83 was fulfilled in the way that it says. Even 1948. I know Amir and others say it was fulfilled in 1948, but you cannot convincingly prove that. And even some
Right.
that say it, like for example, Arnold Fruchtenbaum, he's like, well, it looks to be partially fulfilled in 1948, but not fully fulfilled. And so, in that regard, I think that there's going to be no conclusive position on that until something happens. But others like Amir and others are saying, they will say, look, the next thing on the agenda is Ezekiel 38. So it is hard for me to see that if all of this comes to be, Psalm 83 would be very difficult for it to happen if all of a sudden Syria, which is a neighbor, Egypt already has a peace agreement,
Right.
Jordan already has a peace agreement. If they started getting this security and everybody's jumping on board, Lebanon jumps on board, Syria is a huge deal because they're so close. Saudi Arabia, even some of these other countries, that would seem to push Psalm 83 kind of in the area of not happening. But I will say this. I wrote an article for our magazine. There was a lot of people attacking Bill and saying this. And so I wrote an article, not so much in defense specifically of what Bill's saying, but simply to say, look, I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of commentaries, right? Maybe even thousands. And I pulled out 50 commentaries on Psalm 83. Not a single one of them could show that it was fulfilled in history. Not one. And in fact, Asaph in Psalm 83, he's a prophet. He's quoted in the New Testament as a prophet. So this idea that Asaph wasn't a prophet is false. The New Testament confirms it.
Now, if that's okay, so we've confirmed now and made that conclusion that Psalm 83 is we're just going to say it's a futuristic prophetic war that has not taken place yet. If that's the case, doesn't that war have to happen before Ezekiel 38, 39? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Syria missing from Gog Magog?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what Bill Solis does phenomenally is he shows Psalm 83 being an inner ring, and then he shows Ezekiel 38 being an outer ring. And so when you look in Ezekiel 38, none of those inner rings are demonstrated there. Syria, Lebanon, Hamat, which is again in Damascus, even Jordan, none of those inner ring are in Ezekiel 38.
So it's not a far-fetched to hypothesize that where we could be heading next is this peace, all this peace and stuff will last for a season, but then something happens and it enrages these Islamic nations, and they say, according to the prophet, let us wipe out Israel, let us remove them as a nation, according to Psalm 83, and they form a confederacy. And then again, this is a hypothesis. And then when they try to come against Israel, I believe it's possible that Syria is heavily damaged in that attack, and thus it fulfills Isaiah 17, where in which Damascus is destroyed. And that would, at least to me, that makes more sense of why when we get to Ezekiel 38, 39, Syria is not in there, because it doesn't make any logical sense. Why would Syria not be involved in that war? But if we go with that, that makes sense to me. Is that your thought process too?
No, absolutely. And that's exactly there's a challenge here, because what those nations are not involved, and there's no way that they wouldn't jump on the bandwagon, the train. Because remember, when the Bible says that they come from the north, they come upon the land, they have to come through Syria or Lebanon. That has always been historically, again, in ancient times past, they always came down through Damascus, through the Golan Heights. I mean, that's just, if you look at it, or over in Lebanon, Tyre and Sidon, if you were to come down the coast. Historically speaking, the armies always came up from the north. The only one time that you would have would be Egypt. Other than that, nobody's coming from the east. It's a desert. Nobody comes that way.
Right.
They come over the top and come down. So you would have to go through Hezbollah and Syria, and they would be more than happy to jump on a Russian tank or a Turkish tank.
Wow. Now, speaking of how things can really turn just on a dime, I want to show you this article, guys. This is from the Sun, the U.S. Sun. Israel admits some of Iran's underground uranium stockpile survived Trump's blitz and threatens to strike bases again. So this was interesting. According to this report, again, Israel is now saying some of Iran's highly enriched nuclear weapons grade uranium stockpile. By the way, it's missing, and there was a report saying that Israel doesn't really know where it's at, which I question that, but whatever. Survived. Anyway, this article says that they are now saying that this stockpile survived the bombings, and now they're saying that there is a possibility. I guess they're going to. I don't know. How Israeli intelligence is going to let that play out or whatnot, but they're saying there could be another bombing on this. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, there is no doubt this is not over. I did see another recent article in the last couple of days that Israel has admitted exactly what you just read there, but they also said, we know where it is. We know where it went, and it's being hidden, and we know where it's being hidden. So unfortunately, there was even before all this happened, there was the realism that even our, bunker buster weapons were not going to get all the way in. It's just impossible. It's way too underground because, our weapons went 200 feet. Well, they've put this stuff inside mountains where you got 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet above you. So there's no way that, and again, in reality, Trump, I think was, I think he was overstating and exaggerating. Not that it wasn't a successful mission, but in the overall goals of eliminating everything, no, there's just no way. And but the biggest thing is not even so much. It did set him back a couple of years if that's true. The biggest thing in this whole operation was not even necessarily whether our bunker busters were successful. It was that they got Trump to do something, and Trump joined. America joined in. And that was the victory for Israel, knowing, and I don't disagree with that. I think they were right to do it at all, 100%. So, but Israel, this was the first time, again, that even Trump, I don't believe Trump's a warmonger. I really don't at all. But to get him to actually do something was pretty powerful. And I think he realized that all the lies that Iran told him back in his first administration, and he saw them doing the same stalling that was happening this time. Finally, he just said, you know what? Enough's enough. So this is not going away. And how does this contribute to Ezekiel 38? Well, we know that Iran is one of the primary members there. So they have not gone away. And so whether they also said that they realized that Iran learned something. So they learned that that Israel can attack across many thousands of miles or 1,000 miles or so. Just normally, but that the United States was willing to do it. And secondly, they realized we need to go deeper. So everything they do now is going to go deeper. And so there really won't be, unless there won't be another operation necessarily with bunker busters, because it's just not going to be a realistic goal. Wow.
So I got two real quick questions, and we're going to wrap this up. We got about 6 minutes left. One, I'm sure you probably saw this. It's as if Putin is provoking Trump. I know you probably saw this, but recently he bombed Ukraine. It was like they're calling this like one of the most intense bombings since the war began, and this made headlines, and and then there was this alleged leaked audio that came out, where in which Trump said, he threatened China and he threatened Russia or Putin that he would bomb them as well. Now I don't know. This was a while back, but do you think that could we get involved? Could America be engaged in a war directly with Russia? What's the end game with this with Putin? Now we know, if I'm correct, Russia is involved. Some people don't believe they are, but some people do. Again, your thoughts may be different, but I've always thought that Russia is involved in Gog and Magog as well. They're the Southern Soviet Russian state, or an aspect of that, of Ezekiel 38-39. But if not, then again, your thoughts on that. And then the second question, which we'll close on this, is what do you think we should be looking for? What's the next thing, the big thing on the prophetic timetable that we really need to keep our eyes on?
Yeah, and going to Ezekiel 38, there's no doubt that Gog of the land of Magog, that Magog does refer to what we understand in ancient history as the Scythians or the Scythians, depending on how you want to say it. And these were a nomadic people on the southern steppes of Russia. So that is 100% clear. In fact, it goes all the way over to Ukraine. And so, which Ukraine, again, in ancient times, there was no border there as we have these artificial borders today. So, in fact, there's you could even, hypothetically, you could even include Ukraine being in part of the land of Magog. So
interesting.
Nevertheless, I think Russia absolutely, from the farthest parts of the north, is involved in that war, 100%. Along with, again, what we've been seeing with pictures of Erdogan and all the recent presidents of Iran. So what's the end game with Putin? Well, I find this interesting. I do not, as of right now, I don't think that Trump, even though he might make comments about bombing this or that, I don't think he wants a fight with Russia. I don't think he wants a fight with China, because I really do think, again, what's his goal? And people could argue if they want, but what's he doing? Everything that he has been doing has been seeking to create peace agreements. He tried with Putin. He tried with Ukraine. He's trying with everybody, certainly in the Middle East. And he gets frustrated because I really do think, and he makes comments, he really wants the Nobel Peace Prize. Okay. Look at what he did for Pakistan, right? And India at the time, and they praised him. So right before the United States bombed Iran, they praised him. They nominated him for the Peace Prize. So I don't think he's being eager to start a war with anybody in that regard. However, I think Putin is trying to press and to see how far can I get away with this. I do think as well that I don't think Putin would necessarily mind a wider conflict with Europe. Europe is very weak. Europe is, of course, Trump has been very clear about NATO, wondering whether it's even needed anymore, forcing them to raise their income, their income contributions. So the United States is over here, but I think Putin, if he wants anything, is he would want a greater conflict with Europe, but not the United States, because that would be World War III, because nobody's going to win that.
Right.
Nobody's going to win that. Eventually, if it was existential, there would be nuclear weapons. And so we're not interested in taking over Russia at all. It's cold. Okay. We don't want to be there in that regard. But so I think over what are we looking for? What I'm watching is, in the sense of prophetic trends, is, of course, you always have the Middle East. That's certainly there. What I'm watching more is during the Biden administration, prophecy teachers would talk often about globalism. We would talk about artificial intelligence, quantum computing, all these things, all of the things that the world, especially with Biden at the helm, Klaus Schwab, all these world organizations, World Health Organization, UN, about their globalistic efforts. So all that to say, we watched that very carefully, and it was making progress. Well, I think the mistake that we have is that, Trump came in and it's all stopped now. I don't think that's the case at all. Now, there's no doubt that Trump is empowering America. And obviously, we're getting rulings by the Supreme Court that in many ways are helpful to the strength of America, whether it's border security or other things that are helping our sovereignty, right? In the sense of American sovereignty. So there's no doubt Trump pulling out of agreements and things has been very good. However,
well, guys, I'm going to stop it right there since it's getting real late. I will come back on later on and we will finish up this video. But thank you for watching. And I hope and pray to God that there was something that was Donna said that will make you look up, because our redemption truly is drawing near. God bless you and have a beautiful morning. Bye for now.